Welcome to the IT Fundamentals training series. I'm your host, Mark Haupt, and today we're going to talk about batteries. Did you know that your computer requires a battery to operate? I'm sure most of you wouldn't have even thought. Let's get started. Welcome back. I'm Mark Haupt, the host of the IT Fundamentals training series here. And today we're going to talk about batteries. And I asked you in the introduction if you knew your computer required a battery to operate. And most of you probably did not realize that that's the case. Batteries, or what we call CMOS batteries, are about the size of a US quarter and commonly used for watch batteries and other types of small devices like that, but they are required on your computer as well. Now, in our last episode, if you haven't already gone to listen to that, we talked about firmware and BIOS and the concept that it's necessary to have that base software or firmware code on your computer in order to start up, do the post functions, and get your computer all tied together. But in that, I talked about BIOS and being able to go and configure the BIOS to meet your needs on the computer. So, for example, setting a fan to run at a particular interval to ensure coolness, being able to attach a new hard drive and have your computer recognize that. So the question then becomes, if firmware is on read-only memory and really can't be altered, how do we alter it if we're able to get into the BIOS and make changes? Well, here's how you do that. All right. So we're going to talk about this thing called CMOS and then the CMOS battery. So CMOS stands for complementary metal oxide semiconductor. And think of it this way: CMOS is just a small memory chip, just like the chip we talked about that's the random operating or random or the ROM. I'm now forgetting terms here, but the ROM, and that is just a small little chip that's on your motherboard. And what it does is it retains the settings for the configurations that you place into the BIOS when you hit F12, F2, or the delete key in order to get and make and alter changes. So the one big question then is, if it's holding those changes and it's actually a volatile memory chip rather than a non-volatile. And remember, volatile memory is kind of like RAM rather than ROM. The RAM will actually wipe away when there's no electricity to it, whereas ROM it's held in place. So if this CMOS chip is like RAM rather than ROM, then how in the world do we maintain all these settings that we place into the BIOS? Well, that's where the CMOS battery comes into play. So this little battery, the size of a quarter, is inside of your computer. If you open up your computer and you kind of look around, you look for a silver quarter-sized device that's sitting inside of a little clip, that's likely your CMOS battery. And what this does is this gives just enough electricity to the motherboard, and in particular that CMOS chip, in order to retain the settings even after you unplug the computer and you disconnect all power to the computer. And that's the only purpose of it, in order to maintain those very, very basic settings so that you don't have to go in and reconfigure it every time there's a storm that goes through and you lose power to your house, or you move your computer, or you unplug your computer just for the fun of it to make your kids angry or something along those lines. So that battery has that function. All right, so if we take a little bit deeper look at this, that battery will provide a constant small amount of power to that chip, or that CMOS memory chip. All right, and that CMOS memory chip is just sitting probably right next to the battery on your motherboard. So what do you need to know in order to pass the exam? Just simply two things. Know what the CMOS does. It retains the BIOS settings so that when the post happens underneath the BIOS and the startup process, when the post happens, it will read off of that chip, apply those settings, and away you go. Second thing you need to remember for your process here is that CMOS battery, and the fact that it exists and just gives a small amount of power. Now, that CMOS battery will last you for years. And when people ask me how long a computer will last, I usually tell them in between 4 and 6 years, because that's about how long the battery will last. When you start seeing your computer the clock on your computer not keeping up with the time that is in your home or in your time zone or where you're at, or every time you start up, you're getting different settings on your computer, things aren't maintaining correctly. That doesn't necessarily mean your computer is going bad, but it might mean that your battery is going bad. And it's very simple to replace the CMOS battery. You just open up the case. There's a clip around the battery. You pull the battery out by removing the clip. Sometimes you can go right down to Walmart. That's how frequent, how easy it is to buy these batteries. You go to Walmart, or you can go to Batteries Plus or somewhere like that with the battery. Make sure you get an identical one, maybe not the same manufacturer, but the same voltage, same size, and all that kind of stuff. You take it back, you put it in your computer, and away you go. I've repaired multiple computers that were baffling people that they didn't realize what was really going on by just simply replacing a battery for about $2. All right. So there you go. Your computer actually runs on battery, and that's proof of it. You can open it up and take a look at it. All right. Again, send in your feedback, send in your questions to mhoupt@commonsensesecurity.net. And if you're listening to this on iTunes or on YouTube, subscribe and give us those 5 stars so that we could keep this process going. All right, this is episode 8, and I look forward to coming back to you with episode 9 tomorrow.